Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Case for Construction Culture podcast, balancing safety and profitability. I'm Tom Esch, president of Esch Consulting. I'm here with Louis Moritz from the Builders Group. Welcome, Louis.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're up north near, I think, Brainerd, right, Louis?
Yeah, work out of the home based on where our customers are at our clients, our
Yep.
members. Yeah.
Yep. And I've known Louis a long time. I want to say, Louis, it was 12, 13 years ago when you were with Rice Lake. You had me come in to do a workshop, do a program called Building a Culture of Safety Accountability, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yes,
So
good
Louis
memory.
worked with a number of organizations, worked with Eagan Company. He's worked with Excel. He's now with the Builders Group based in Eagan. And you are the man of the North, right, Louis?
Well, I reside from there, that's for sure.
Yeah, he resides. You're very humble, Louis. We're here to talk about, balancing safety and profitability. We're here to talk about culture and and we're here to talk about what you're excited about as a safety guy and what you do. And just so our listeners know, you are supporting insurance, right? You are helping companies stay safe, construction companies, the builders group. Say a little bit about the scope of the builders group and how you fit into that.
Yeah, so we're a work comp carrier in the state of Minnesota, and I'm
Yep.
a safety person for them. And I'll go out and I'll help members, and it's part of our premium. We don't charge any of that. It's just whatever their workers' comp is. Part of their member
Hmm.
benefits are for or to have safety services available to them at no cost.
Yep.
And so with that, we go out to help them in any way we can from a safety lens. And it's a real rewarding experience to go out and work with some of the smaller members that maybe only have two or three employees, so
Hmm.
they can't really afford to have a consultant come in or anything like that. And it's
Sure.
part of their work comp premium. And like I say, it's something that we work hard to make sure they know that resource is available to help them.
Yep.
You bet.
Well, and you guys are one of the best out there, I think, Louis. You do really good work. I know a number of others who work there, and I have a lot of respect for the Builders Group. What are you excited about this year as we going into 2025? Still pretty early here. What's exciting for you? How do you keep the flame of energy, Louis? You've been doing this a long time. What
Yeah.
excites you this year?
Well, we've got a number of initiatives and things of that nature. I know we've got a mobile van that we're going to be using to help with those remote members and get out there
Awesome.
and bring some more hands-on demonstrations
Hmm.
to those out-of-state members. So that's exciting. Probably see that, in the first, if not first quarter into the second quarter. I know we're getting the van fitted right now.
Yep.
So we're excited about that. That's a really cool thing to witness.
Did
And
I did
then
I see that van? Excuse me. Did I see that van at an open house maybe half a year ago? Wasn't that at your place in Eagan?
Well, you might be thinking of the safety trailer. We've had the
Well,
safety
maybe I'm
trailer.
thinking of that. Yeah, you had it
Yeah,
all opened up. It's beautiful.
yeah,
So many resources and tools, and it's just a mobile training center is what it is, huh?
exactly. Yep. And then we're going to mimic that trailer, but we're going to have it so it's a little more accessible and it will be it's going to be a van that's set up.
Aha,
Very
got it.
similar.
I have not seen. So that's exciting. And you mentioned something else earlier about working with companies that maybe had something happen, right?
Right. So the other thing I'm really excited about, and it's building that trust with them to recognize, hey, there may be a poor performing member, their numbers aren't coming in, and they just need help. And so you look at how can you get out there to help them develop a recovery plan for them to make sure that they're on track and get them back on track from where they lost their way or just stumbled a bit, in the previous
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, that's great, Lou. You got a heart for the one who might need a little help, and the one who needs help this year might be the one helping someone else next year. The one who has a great 3 years in a row might have a tough, right? You,
That's
you don't,
sometimes that's right. I mean, it's sometimes it's some of them struggle a year or so and then they get back on track, and then there's some that they just got a lot of a wherewithal and grit, and they can contain and
yeah.
maintain their safety performance.
Well, and I'm curious because I think you're part of what, 100, 125 that you serve, and
Yes,
he
yeah,
has.
roughly about 125. So I think the latest numbers I've seen is TBG insures about 660 members throughout the state of Minnesota. And just based where I'm at about 125 from, St. Cloud area to, north to, I would say up to almost International Falls, Duluth, Virginia.
the beautiful weather up there right now, huh, Louis? Just
Yes,
beautiful up in February here up there in International Falls. I'm sure you love it every time, Louis, you go up
it's a
there.
beautiful time of year, that sub-zero, 17 below and
You gotta love the cold. So you see so many different cultures, Louis. I'm very curious, truly. What do you think of when I talk about safety culture or just the word culture within construction? What does it mean to you? What is culture? People throw this word around now. It's like been the hottest word for the last 5, 7 years. What is the
yeah,
heck does it mean to you?
it's kind of a buzzword. You know, cultures, I think beliefs that folks have, perceptions that they have. I
Hmm.
think it's part of the fabric of a company for
Hmm.
sure. And then it could be part of their, the manuals that you have for that company, the black and white of how you're supposed to operate.
Yeah,
More importantly, I think Tom, it's the gray area too, the
that's well
unspoken thing.
said. That's well said. What do you mean by that? What is the gray area? What do you mean by that, Louis? I like
Those are, yeah, it's a great question and follow-up. Tom, to me, it's what is acceptable that might not get you in trouble, but what's, maybe borderline that might get you in trouble, but it's not on the books. And
Uh-huh.
everybody knows what's on,
That's so
what's on the
good.
books and what's off the books, but it's really, what's that thing that probably is going to push the limit to your boss or the owner.
That's so good, Louis, because it's kind of subtle, isn't it? It's hard to grab. This it's the best. I think the best definition I've heard yet of culture, because I'm asking so many people, is that's the way it is around here. Someone said that's culture. That's the way it is
Yeah,
around here,
yeah.
and it's subtle. The way it is at one company is not quite the way it is. They're all supposed to wear their goggles and their PPE and have all their regulations about underground work and confined space work, right? All the OSHA rules are there, but one company has this way of approaching the OSHA, and another company lets this slide, right? Or the what you call the gray area. That's really interesting. The culture, I think, lives or dies in those gray areas, right? Maybe
A lot of times.
that safety is impacted even. I mean, we know enough now when you have really strong, positive, good, healthy culture, it impacts safety in a positive direction. When there's either too much of the gray or too much lax or maybe too much control, sometimes safety people will be like, we gotta make them do it, right? The old school way, force them, make gotta do it, right? The sort of total top down that worked great 50 years ago, even 40, 30 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and it's just not working anymore, right, Louis?
Well, with those traditionalists, yeah, the boomers maybe a little bit, but as you get into the Generation X and what is it now, Z, I think, and millennials and
The,
Z, I mean, it
yep,
certainly doesn't work that way. It's a different way of molding and cultivating too. And I've talked to some owners that say, hey, if I thought the way I did 25 years ago, I wouldn't have many people working for me.
that's
So
true.
they have to adjust the way how they operate as well.
It's
I mean,
true, and we probably lose a few things, but I think we gain a few things. I think most of us would agree some of the old school ways were not the most human or humane or even kind at times, right? Just kind of like learn it the way I did, buddy, and good luck and figure it out on your own. Kind of that old school sort of tough guy thing is not the 20-year-olds will not go for that.
no,
They'll
they
go
won't.
do DoorDash and make 25 bucks an hour before they'll stay around with that. We all know this by now. So, what are some of the challenging things you're seeing, Louis, this year? What are the things that got you a little concerned, or maybe up at night a little bit? Anything happening that you're a little concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are, concerning to some degree. I mean, I think finding the right people, before COVID-19, hit everybody, there was employers out there saying, hey, do you know two or three people that we could use, good workers right now?
Yeah,
And it was, prior to 20, and all of a sudden now people still have that. Employers are still looking for people, but it's hard to find the right person for their organization. So, and then when you find them, how do you keep them? And you got to train them. And some of the things you're finding, going out to some of these other association events that are held locally, usually this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
is, some owners are like, once you find some folks, do you train them and put them through a bunch of training and worry that they're going to take off and go somewhere? So do you wait a little bit or do you train them right away? I mean, how do you retain them? I mean, so you've got all those concerns. And in the interim, what do they do to mitigate hazards to make sure these people that maybe don't have the knowledge base yet because they're brand new to construction, how do you make sure that they don't get hurt in the interim, you know? So it's finding that balance. And so those are some things that, how can, TBG, how do we help get into those places and take that time. Everybody agrees training is great, but having the time to train folks too. I mean, that can
Mm-hmm.
be one of those challenges that it wears on you because you don't want to always do everything you can to make sure somebody doesn't get hurt and set them up for success, you know.
Yeah, those are some steep and real challenges, Louis. Those are not made up. This is boots on the ground, real life, and you deal in a lot of smaller towns and a lot of smaller companies, and they don't have 150 resumes coming in. These little towns. How do you? What are some of the things you say or do to help these companies to either find or keep good people? Anything out there that you see that's effective or useful or things you're talking about? What are the tricks of the trade or?
Just them having understanding their expectations of what they need to find the right people. I think screening is the most important thing because then you know what you're going to end up with. If you don't
Mm-hmm,
have any criteria for what you're looking for, you just take anybody.
mm-hmm,
And if you can do any type of screening to get to what you're looking for an individual to make, that you can build upon,
mm-hmm.
I think that's a building block that they all need to be aware of. Not all of them have that type of thought process, and you try
There you
to
go.
try to bring it to their attention to say, you know, instead of flooding the zone, why don't we look at having a more scalpeled approach to get the right people? That way you have
Mm-hmm.
folks that you can go through and select, from your candidate pool, you know.
Are there some resources you steer people to do some of this? I just did a podcast earlier today with somebody from Denver, company of 400 people, a lot of underground work. They have a very scientific hiring process, and it's different for each level that they're hiring for, but it's incredibly, I would say, scientific. It isn't, they're not just throwing paint at the wall. They are going through a very thorough, they have crafted simulation exercises for different people, if it's a general superintendent or if it's a foreman or if it's a project manager or if it's a safety coordinator or director. They have all these, and they have like um, skill sets, like competencies, they call it. You have to have these 5 competencies in this area, and then you got to pass this simulation, and you got to solve this safety. The safety person, they said, gets an example. Here's a case study. This is it's an imaginary injury that could have been real. Here's what we know. Here's what happened. How do you handle it? How do you write the paperwork up? How do you handle the legal side? How do you handle the OSHA side? So, do you know any resources? You don't have companies a lot, maybe that many that have, that kind of robust hiring process. What do you offer or steer people towards, or do they have their own resources?
Well, and sometimes they do through the building associations that
Uh-huh.
they have up here locally, the
Uh-huh.
smaller businesses and even some of the larger ones, they are part of those associations, and there's job fairs and things of that, or career fairs. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's opportunities for that. Tools for schools is something that's out there that's trying to look at the folks that are in, the latter parts of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Do they want to look at a career that's, the 2-year,
Mm-hmm.
4-year degree college, or is there something in the trades that may, be something that they want to pursue and give them at
Mm-hmm.
least the idea to plant the seed that, there's some pretty good, careers that can be in construction,
Mm-hmm.
so I think those are some things that can help from one aspect. The other thing is just, there's a lot of different third parties that can help
Mm-hmm.
to your point of finding the right people, just through different types of screening and selection process.
Sure. Sure. So, hiring people, a perennial challenge. Are there other challenges that you see, Louis, in the safety world or in the shaping culture world? Um,
I do. I think there's a lot of folks that are ready to retire, and part of
mhm.
the challenge with that is the knowledge gap. Is that going to be taken care of with the people
Yeah,
that are in place
yeah,
as these people decide to sunset and go
yeah.
into the retirement age? I mean, that those are things
Huge,
that
huge
I'm
issue.
concerned.
Do you do anything with that? Do you chat about it? Do you steer them to resources? Do you dive in and lead workshops? What do you do with that one?
That's something that we don't necessarily, I mean, it's something in the leadership programs that we're thinking about. And I know we've worked with you on, discussing that. But
Yeah,
our employees, are you being looking at your employees' future? I mean, what is the company's future also?
sure, sure,
Are these owners looking at what does my future look like 5, 10 years down the road, strategic?
sure.
And sometimes I think it's missed. They're looking at some of the day-to-day operations. They're not thinking that far down the road. And I think that's something that it can sneak up on a lot of employers. And you talk to a few of them and say, you know what, I don't have a family that I'm going to sell the company to. So what am I going to do?
Yeah,
Am I going to go out of business and retire, or can I sell it to somebody? Maybe I have somebody that's working for me for the last 10, 15 years. Are they interested in buying me out?
yeah.
I mean, those types of things too.
Succession. Oh, those are so important, Louis. Do you guys at TBG track any of these trends and challenges, whether it's succession planning that's maybe not set up enough? I know it's a perennial challenge and for the smaller contractors, especially. They're not versed in this. They don't know how. Whether it's the generational thing, you're losing some baby boomer institutional knowledge, or whether it's the buddy to boss is the program I've been doing for you guys. When you got a guy going from buddy to boss, how do you do that? Do you track any of that, Louis? Do you have just an informal sense, or do you guys make notes? Do you compare notes at TBG? Like, boy, we really need this, guys. This is an issue.
This is another good question, Tom. The safety services folks, I think we take notes, and with our director, that's being bubbled up to the management team there in the leadership
Mm-hmm.
team, TBG,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have their peer teams, and they, throughout the United States, and look at
Mm-hmm.
those trends and bring
Mm-hmm.
them back to say, hey, these are what some opportunities are that they're utilizing in other states that
Mm-hmm.
we can do here and look at, and vice versa. We'll do the same thing for them.
And ideally, you probably want your customers to come to you, right, Louis? Wouldn't that be great if 40 of your 125 came to you next week and said, "Boy, Louis, this is what we need," right? But they don't. I bet they don't do that, do they?
Some are very good about reaching out, and then there's some that that are you're the insurance company, so they're kind of just a little bit off standish, and that's
Sure.
where I go back to that trust of slowly working towards getting your foot in the door, having those face-to-face conversations, them getting to know you and know that you're out to help them, and then eventually when you connect and that trust is made, they'll talk to you a little bit about some of their challenges and some of that dirty laundry that they don't want to publicly, right?
Yes. Boy,
But
that's so
to help
important.
them.
Boy, building that trust is so important, isn't it, Louis? For you to get accurate information and for you to be able to fully support them. And I totally know what you mean. Nobody wants to talk about their safety. They don't even want to talk about a near miss, right? This is a problem. I'm training guys in safety, and they don't even want to admit that they almost had a kickback with their demo saw. They don't want anyone to know. I made a mistake. Even though the safety guy often says, or the safety gal, please be honest. If you had something happen, tell us all so we can all benefit, right? But if the trust, so what do you do to build trust, Louis? What are your best tricks for building trust?
Well, I think just being genuine, being out there and building rapport with the crew, the supervisor, the management team, those are all essential components. Being out there and you gotta invest. You know,
So just being present, connecting, getting to know them, being a good person, demonstrating that you care. Are those some of the things that you
those
think?
are all attributes that are essential. Yeah, absolutely.
And how about time? Some of these guys seem like the only thing that'll ever work is like 20 years of time, right? Do you have some guys like some of the some of these characters will never fully trust somebody and
There will be those folks
for
that
good reasons.
Yeah, for their own reasons, God bless them. They're going to be the tough nut to crack, but
Yeah.
you still work towards it. I remember, it's been a few years ago, but I ran into a guy and he just, again, they look at you in my current role as an insurance person, where I don't work for an agency. I work for an insurance company and I'm a safety services person. I'm a
Yeah.
safety,
Yeah.
and he's like, I don't like insurance folks, but I really like what TBG and what you offer for my company.
Hmm.
And I thought, I don't know him that well, but coming from him, I think that's a win for the day. I
Hmm.
thought it was his own way of complimenting what we do to help his employees become more
Yep.
safety conscious and have a
Yep.
safety conscious work environment.
I'm aware I have about 4 or 5 minutes, Louis. Tell me if you would, a story, if you have one, of a culture change process or any time you were either part of a change at one of the companies where you worked or anything with any place where you did some substantial work or saw things, maybe something that went well or maybe that didn't, if you can tell it without, getting in trouble.
Sure. Yeah.
Anything real that we can share that our listeners would value here in terms of really initiating change, and which is not easy in the
No, it's tough. It's one boss had told me one time, one owner had said, changing culture is like turning that Titanic. It
Yep.
takes
Yep.
time and we're making progress.
Yep.
And sometimes it wasn't, sometimes when you look at it, when you're in a safety director role or risk manager role, you're like, it's maybe not going fast enough in your mind, even though you're making progress, you don't see it maybe as much.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I think the wins out there that I've seen firsthand, Rice Lake being one, is recognizing it's a team sport. Safety is a team sport. You need to have the quarterback, if you want to call him the quarterback or call her the
Yeah.
quarterback, but the safety person. But you
Yeah.
also need everybody helping too, right? From
Yeah.
project management, you've got to have obviously owner support first and foremost.
Hmm.
Then you need to have the leadership staff, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Your project management, your supervisors out in the field, and then you need the employees and everybody working in harmony to pull in the same direction to make
Hmm.
things work. And when things are recognized that there's gaps, we don't fault find, we recognize it was a gap and we move and close those out.
Hmm.
And those are things that I see that take time, that do work, and you see it in your incident rates. The near misses start to become reported. The
Hmm.
active caring starts to develop on the job site.
Hmm.
And you start to see that culture shift and that change, and it's really cool to witness when you do.
So you saw this at Rice Lake.
Absolutely.
That's awesome,
Absolutely.
Louis. It's awesome. I'm sure there's a lot more detail there, but I appreciate just you having been there and seeing it firsthand. I'm guessing you had a hand in that. You were a part of that, right?
A very small one, just part of just part of
Mhm.
a group working together
Part of the
to,
team.
yeah, part of the
Team
team.
effort's so important. And I sometimes talk to safety guys who don't have the ear of the owner, either because the company's too big or because the owner or the key leaders are not sometimes invested enough in safety. Then I see other cultures where the C-level people show up at the safety committee meeting or they talk to the safety leader every week. Like I've seen these cultures, and I'm sure you've seen some of that too, Louis. You've probably seen a wide range of that, right?
Yeah, I've seen it where you've got an open door and you talk to the owners, almost daily, if not sometimes several times a day, depending on what's going on. Or
Yeah,
I've seen it where it's more stratified and you may never talk to the owner, being at
yeah,
a very big organization like Excel.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
Louis, any final quick thought from you? I'm really grateful for your thoughts, for your time on the podcast here. Any final thought from you about culture, safety? Uh,
I appreciate you again having me on, thinking of me to be on the podcast. It's a great to just have these conversations because it's opportunities like this that get broadcast out to just people are always, sometimes you always think that you're alone in these,
yes,
challenges. Most
yes,
companies have these challenges and we all have to work together to figure out how it works with each organization to resolve them, to make that win for our employees. It's the number
Yeah,
one investment that we have, right? The number one
yeah,
resource is our employees and make sure they get home in one
absolutely.
piece.
Absolutely.